Good evening once again, our viewers. Welcome to the tower at UNN. It is 12:38 right now in the eastern coast of the US, and it's 7 o'clock, 7:38 in Ugandan time, and 5 in the UK. We welcome you once again to this show as we discuss issues that are trending within Uganda. I appreciate all that have always watched us, and I hope they get something out of it. This week, we have a lot of issues that have trended in Uganda, and those are the very ones that we are going to discuss this evening. Uganda, we're still in a lockdown, and despite of low cases of COVID, we are experiencing a lot of issues, especially when it comes to governance, and we are here to discuss them. We are also going to look at some issues that came up in South Africa, where the former president Jacob Zuma was sentenced to 15 years and 15 months in jail. And this sparked off a riot that is bringing a lot of talk all over Africa and the world. This very week, again, we experienced a quarrel between National Unity Platform and the FDC over the shadow cabinet members that from FDC that were included on the list. And this has brought also a very exciting week. With me in the studios, I have Dr. Serubanja, who is a specialist in viral diseases, and he is also an expert. Been running up and down when it comes to COVID-19 in Uganda. You're welcome, Dr. Serubanja Joel.
Thank you very much, Dr. Juko. And our viewers tonight, I'm very happy and very glad to be here to yet again discuss some of the issues that are affecting our country. Thank you.
Doctor, I think the world, Uganda has been on lockdown for 3 weeks now, and we're experiencing it again in the next possibly 2 weeks if it is not lifted, and we hope it is lifted. But the situation right now that we have today seems to be at stake because despite the COVID-19 slowdown, again, things are not all the best. We want you to go through some of the issues that you have seen. What are basically the causes of the slowdown of the COVID infection, Dr. Joel?
Yeah, so I think from the time that we started the lockdown, we have seen an increase in the following of the SOPs. People are masking up even as you walk on the Kampala streets. There is sanitizer everywhere. And of course, there is limited movement because of the lockdown. And this is keeping infection pockets in different areas. When people are infected in one place, they are not interacting with people who are not infected in another. And we are seeing more than half of a drop in the infection cases in the country.
Yes, doctor. According to observations from various medical personnel, it seems like there are several waves that come up, and the first wave is always very dangerous. But to our Ugandan side, we are observing that possibly this is the third wave, which was more or most disturbing, and it took a lot of people. What was your comment about that?
So yeah, the first wave that we had in 2020, we were having COVID. We were having the coronavirus alpha, and this wasn't as transmissible as the one that we've had in the second wave. In the second wave, we've had the variant Delta, and this is much more transmissible. And of course, we were having so many people moving, and there was complacency in the population because we did not believe that COVID-19 was with us, and that's why we've seen it create more damage everywhere in the world where we've had the Delta variant wave. there've been, more cases than what we had in the first wave, and now we're having the second wave slowing down. But our biggest problem is that our neighbors, like Rwanda, they are now in the third wave. So we we're still having this COVID problem with us.
Yes, doctor. When you look at what it really is going on, it seems like, as mentioned before, according to observation and statistics, that we have slowed down. What measures do you think has been put in place that have reduced the COVID infections?
I think that the lockdown, as much as it's one of the most extreme measures, has helped because we had movements slow down from one district to another. The inter-district movement slowed down. So areas with high infection like Kampala, people were not moving that easily to areas of low infection like in the villages, and this enabled to slow down. And of course, we've been in a in a quarantine for over 3 weeks. And we know the natural history of the COVID virus is about 21 days. If you get COVID today, 21 days after, if it does not kill you, your body would have been able to fight it off. So as the natural history of those who are infected continues to progress in a period where we're not moving and less people are getting infected, we're having the virus clear. And of course, the virus is dependent on being in one person and moving it to another. So if it's not moving from one person to another, you have the infections decreasing.
How about the issue of natural immunity? Do you think people have now been sensitized about the COVID problem, and many of them are taking natural kind of natural food, which keeps them stronger in terms of immunity?
So yes, there's a lot of there's a lot of information being passed to the population about how to boost your body for it to be able to fight COVID, and good exercising, hydrating, eating fruits. People are doing a lot of these things, and they could be some of the measures that are enabling the country to fight it off and decreasing the number of infections that we're having.
Doctor, would you also advise our viewers, especially those in Uganda, that what should be done right now in case somebody feels like he has signs of COVID?
Um, our viewers, I I encourage you, and I can't do this enough, that if somebody has signs and symptoms of COVID, please visit the nearest health facility, or please get in touch with the nearest health doctor or worker that you can have access to, so that they can be able to advise you. There are toll-free numbers which you can call, which the ministry put in place. If you think that you're having a COVID case, please utilize those numbers. You can go online if you can, and contact hospitals have been able to put in place those kind of call centers so that you can be able to get the good information, because there's a lot of information within our society, and some of it is dangerous to our population.
Doctor, when you look at the statistics again concerning about people that have been vaccinated, and the rate at which the COVID is slowing down, would you relate the two? Is there any coincidence between the two, or is it has happened in a very mythical way?
The vaccination campaign is still not as significant as we would have wanted it to be, because so far, of the 44 million Ugandans we've had, only over 1 million of the people vaccinated. So we still have a very low vaccine uptake within our communities, and the vaccines themselves are not available in the country. So it's not one of those measures that we could say that is slowing down the infection. We still need to get more vaccines, and we still need to vaccinate more for it to have a very good impact.
Oh, yes. Thank you, Doctor. What would you advise the government? What do you think the government should bridge the gap? Which gap do you think the government needs to bridge up so that we can have a peaceful in terms of healthy conditions in Uganda?
The government needs to continue talking to the partners. By partners, I'm talking about the westernized countries like the US, okay, because they stockpiled up so many vaccines. So there are no vaccines on the market. But then these countries, the UK, the US, they are having a lot of vaccines, which they are now donating to the World Health Organization. So we need to continue talking to those countries so that we are considered in those vaccines that are being passed on, so that we can be able to get the vaccines that the population needs.
Yes, finally, Doctor. According to the president, it seems like the people of Uganda are very negligent, and they tend to be very complacent to the situation that we have about COVID. Do you think the government itself has not done the best, or do you think who of the two, the government or the people, who do you think have been naive over this?
I think that this COVID situation is a problem of the country. Both the people and the government need to do more because at the end of the day, it's a disease that has affected us economically, it has affected us health wise. So we do need to continue. Both the government needs to continue to educate its people and to equip the hospitals to provide the vaccines, but also the people need to use these hospitals and to take up these vaccines for COVID to be fought in an impactful manner.
Yes, doctor, when you the other time we were with us, our viewers are commenting that did you, I mean, there was an issue of the hiking of prices of hospital bills, and that was affecting many members. And one was making an analysis that because of the hiking, many people are dying deep in the villages, not going to the hospitals because they know that whether the person survives or dies, they will have a big cost to, to pay. Do you think the hospitals have done something to make sure that people really get the medicine or whatever medication that they want in time and at a lower cost?
So the biggest issue with COVID-19 is how fast do you get diagnosed with the disease and how fast do you get the treatment. So there's been innovations like home care for those people who cannot be able to access the hospitals. But what has been key is making sure people do not people access treatment much faster before they advance to severe forms of COVID, which are very expensive to treat, where people will need oxygen and they get into the ICU. As far as uh, price normalization is concerned, we have not had a big debate as a country to be able to control the private players in the private sector as far as the prices are concerned. So when people are still grappling with these bills, but the key thing is that the number of severe cases of COVID have also come down, and thus what people are spending on the treatment is much lower.
Oh, thank you very much, Doctor. I think, Doctor, can you wrap up and say the final words that you think you would give to our viewers, and then possibly we shall look forward, I mean, seeing you another time. Would you please
Uh,
wrap up and then send our farewell greetings to our viewers?
Thank you, Dr. Juko. To our viewers, COVID is still, as much as the number of cases have come down, COVID is still a real threat to our health. It's still a real threat to our economy. And as soon as we're opened up from the lockdown, if we do not continue following the SOPs, if we do not continue seeking early medical care, we might easily get another wave, as we have seen in other countries whereby they've had the second wave and they're having the third wave. A case in point is Rwanda. So we need to continue uh, looking out for the signs and symptoms, making sure we're getting treated, making sure we follow the SOPs, and also when the vaccines get available, going out there and getting the vaccine shots. To our viewers, thank you very much. And to Dr. Juko and the rest of the team, thanks for the opportunity yet again for me to be able to talk to the people. Thank you.
Doctor, do you have a private kind of place where our viewers were asking me whether you have a private place where you you do your services other than working for the government and this and organization?
I have my private practice. I've been having a private practice for over the last 5 years. It's called Lead Medical Clinic in Old Kampala near Gaddafi Mosque. Also, my contacts can be availed because sometimes, as we're in the lockdown, people cannot be able to come to me, and then I can be able to give them vital information to help them when they get a problem.
Yes, viewers, we cannot go beyond that with Dr. Joel. Dr. Joel, we are very grateful for the time that you always give us and give us a feedback on what is going on in Uganda, and also giving advice to our viewers on how we can keep ourselves healthy, and as well as being able to, curb the problem of the pandemic. And that has been Dr. Joel Serwanja, who is a viral disease specialist, and whoever possibly would want would contact UNN. UNN is very rich with people that have resources and possibly. As we continue with our show, we have various guests tonight. And don't forget that we, of course, are going ahead with the show after Dr. Serwanja giving us all that feedback. We have in the studio Mr. Kisitu Elias, the economist and the teacher. Mr. Kisitu, great to see you once again. Welcome to UNN.
Thank you so much, the moderator. The viewers, I again congratulate you so much for always being on point. And I thank the management of this media for always giving me the opportunity to address people in the world. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kisitu Elias. I have with me on the panel, as usual, Desire Nakauka. Desire, we are welcome to this show once again.
Thank you. As always, it's always a pleasure to be here every Sunday. I send greetings out to all Ugandans out there, and also condolences to anyone who's lost any relatives during this period of time. And as always, I'm grateful to be here on Sunday. And thank you to UNN and the UNN team for making this possible every Sunday.
Thank you, Desire. Thank you, Desire. Mr. Kisitu, I think I'll join you to say Idi Mubarak to most of our viewers, because I think Tuesday we're going to have the Idi of slaughtering animals. And as well, on the same note, Mr. Kisitu, we, as a teacher, within 2 minutes, I want you to, talk about, of course, the PLE results that came out this week, in which a list of many districts, especially from the west part of Uganda, have proved to be a strong force to reckon with when it comes to academic. Would you comment about that in 2 minutes as we start our show?
Thank you so much. First and foremost, I would like to again be thankful to those parents whose kids performed so well. And again, to feel so bad, to feel so sorry to those kids who did not excel. As I was trying to listen to the minister's speech and Mr. Odongo's communication, over 2,000, 2,222 students' exams were withheld with UNEP. And those coming from most especially districts of that Renzo region, Bundi Bujo, Kasese, that side again. Again, yeah, and around the central region, I saw a few schools whose results were withheld. And UNEP claimed, as usual, that they are still making investigations. They'll have to do the needful as time goes on. Looking at the performance, clearly well, still central region continues, or urban centers continue to perform so well as compared to the schools in villages. What is the attribute of this? Still, the UPE schools continue to perform so poor as compared to the private institutions. And that indicates the following: poor service delivery on the part of the first stakeholder in UPE schools, that is government. Then the other, teachers not doing what they're supposed to do because of not being given enough help in as far as financing, feeding, accommodation, and so on. Still, looking at the results of PLE, I would say that the government should make sure that it increases the amount of money it provides per student. It should look at the welfare of all the teachers teaching in UPE schools. Still, to improve the performance in Uganda, the government should try as much as it can to support also the private institutions, private schools, because we have seen it's on record that they have done a great work towards the excellency of Uganda in as far as education is concerned. I cannot end my speech on education on the PLE results without looking at the effects of COVID-19. Remember very well to everyone who is viewing right now, last year from March, students, all kids, pupils of P7 were not going to school and they stayed at home. The government introduced the home learning materials. But those homes, those areas that access them, the performance is speaks on its own. The performance is very poor. Still, the government brought about the issue of giving out radios to families in Uganda that have got such that they can study, but that did not work out. It only stopped in words. I don't know where the money was put. I don't know whether the money was released and it was not used for the right thing. And that is one thing I think that has contributed to the changing of the permanent secretaries. I'm not saying Mr. Kakoza still in education, but we shall have to find out. The discussion is still going on. We had the lessons on TV stations, which could again do zero impact, if not 1%, zero impact on the students' learning. And right now, I could say that the poor performance is attributed to the poor way of how government handled the last lockdown in as far as the Uganda's first beginning child is concerned. Thank you so much, the moderator. Thank you so much. That was my case.
Thank you, Mr. Tisitu. By the way, my own Prince Shahid, big up, he sat for his PLE, and Princess Nachimbugwe, my owns, they performed well. Thank you, big up my owns. On that very note, can I, Desire, just within 2 minutes, Desire, I want you to chip in regarding the education as we go to our topics. And Desire, do you think that students were really, the performance of students in PLE, does it replicate the situation they have been undergoing? Because, so many part of the syllabus was not covered, and yet they had to sit for exams. And at the end, we see that the performance in some of the places were very good, and other places it was really very bad. Would you relate the situation to what went ahead?
I think Uganda's education system, more than anything, has shown it's the clear image. It's one of those indicators of the class struggle in Uganda. So I think it's a huge indicator that, yes, if you have so many people in rural areas, and I wonder what a study that would look into, of course, Bonaba Some schools, what that would look like and what their performance would look like. How people's children who go to private schools were able to continue going to schools even throughout the different lockdowns, but other children were not able to go to schools and were stopped from going to schools. All those things have factored in, and it's another indicator of how unfairness is reoccurring, because the effect is not that we've had poor performance from some schools and good performance from others. It's indicated a systematic problem that is even going to be a bigger problem, because then the question is, what are now the students who have poorly performed, what lies in their future, and how has their future been affected? Because that's going to create other effects in the near future that will become a complication for those people. So how is the system unfair to the point that just performing badly on your PLE exams doesn't mean, oh, you perform badly on your PLE, but also can doom you even having a future at all in this country?
Thank you very much, Desire. Thank you very much. When we go to the topic of our discussion, the president made yet another appointment in which he appointed Betty Kamya Namisango as the IGG of Uganda, Inspector General of Government. He also went ahead and appointed more permanent secretaries and advisors. We want to get sense out of this. One, what do you think is the role of the IGG? And what sense can we get from picking Betty Namisango Kamya, who was an opposition pundit, and then brought her in the government, and yet right now she is being picked on to work as the IGG. What is your take about that?
So, first of all, I want to start with Betty Kamya have been like her position, the fact that she was part of the opposition in Uganda, the politics of Uganda right now, it's clearly evident as day. We have seen this happen over periods of time where we have very promising opposition leaders, or would be opposition, because let us not use the word opposition so lightly, end up working with the same government or in the same government, giving it legitimacy that it doesn't need. It's like every time we've been at the peak of revolting and the people's revolution, and then we have very reformative ways whereby we expect opposition to be in government and work for the people. So the fact, and it's been normalized and perfected by Museveni's regime, getting opposition to be part of government, even just by the simple title of leader of opposition. You don't need to sit in parliament, but you recognized as that because you had a certain political party. So that's on her having been part of the opposition afterwards and being part of this government. Then another thing that I would say, her role as the IGG, we all know, and we've been watching this carefully, is that those positions, Uganda has become a family business. There is no doubt about that. So my questions would be for Betty Kamya, what precautions has she put in place for herself and her security in case any scandal breaks out at that office? Because we all know that that is not, that would not surprise so many Ugandans, to the point that Rabogo is now one of the advisors to the president. It's a family business. Yeah. Uganda is run according to one family. Even though you're given, you can be someone, for example, we've been talking about Nabanja. She was given such a huge role that these appointments have become meaningless. They have become disrespectful. They have, these appointments show how gone the system is for someone to even fight the system in Uganda. These show that politicians have lost the power, have lost the position, have lost the standing with people to fight for their freedom. And the only decision makers in this that will matter at the end of the day will remain Ugandans.
Thank you very much, Desire. Thank you very much. Mr. Kisitu, if you come in here, would you please, Mr. Kisitu, identify the major functions of an IGG? Because it seems like an IGG would be the police of government, trying, to spy on or to spy on people that are working within the government to see that they don't do anything bad regarding people's funds, the way funds are being run. Do you really, given the roles that you possibly give us, and do you think Betty Kamya is the best fit for this position at this time, as the president appointed her?
With IGG is the watchdog of the government. The work of making sure that all the departments, all the ministers of the government are functioning so well, given the amount of funds that that have been allocated to them in the budget. And the IGG is the one who will always help us to find out whether things are going on well or not. The IGG, if I could say, this time around, the watchdog of government, the person who is going to be following up the government, how the government man has been used, is Honorable Betty Namisango Kamya. Who is Betty Kamya? Before you look at the other point of is she to take up that office, who is Betty Kamya? We know Betty Kamya very well from around Kampala, and has been a woman in Kampala, has been a very big person, having what I can call as the high political command in Kampala. Then is a woman who was in FDC, then had to leave FDC to form up her own party, the Uganda Federal Alliance. And I think everyone knows that. From that side of Uganda Federal Alliance, I don't know what made them rub shoulders with the FDC by the time when Dr. Chiza Besigye was still the president of FDC. Then it is from the Uganda Federal Alliance that Museveni got her from. And actually, President Museveni called it a big fish. And Honorable Betty Namisango Kamya started to serve with NRM. Has served in different offices. Personally, I know Betty Namisango Kamya as a person who can work. But now, this is the scenario. Betty Namisango Kamya contested for being the MP in the previous elections that have been concluded. Bad enough, and I could say good enough, she lost mysteriously. She thought that by working as a minister in NRM government would come up and contest, and then after people trust her with their votes, but it was the opposite. Then we understand, we are here on this the very platform, and we discussed about the new cabinet. The name of Honorable Betty, that is Kamya, was not on the list. Natural Chinji, again, the name was not on the list. Still, the president coming up with another list of the people appointed, the and so on, the general secretaries of different ministries. Betty Kamya becoming the IGG. Remember, the government is divided into two, and I will continue to tell the world that the government of Uganda got two parties in it. We have the shallow government, and we have what we call the deep government, or the shallow state and the deep state. People who formulate the policies are within what I describe in court as being the deep state. For example, you look at Ruabogo, you look at Muhoozi Kainerugaba, you look at Rugunda, all of those ones, they are within the other side of the special side, and they make the policies. And all of them serve the special duties of President Museveni, if I could say. When you look at this side again of the deep government, you add on someone who matters a lot, then come back to the politics of Uganda. In Uganda Central Region, NRM was defeated 100%. Alice Kaboyo was appointed being the minister of Luwero Rwenzori region, whereby the NRM did not perform very well. Looking at the shallow state, where we have people like Betty Kamya, that side, people like Nachula Chinji, that side, they are always put there to make sure that they utilize government offices to give them funds to help to make sure they can bring back the name of NRM that it used to be with by that time. And I could say that with evidence provided, I would say Honorable Betty Kamya, the new IGG, will not do as much as people expect, but she will use the state money, the machines within the IGG office to make sure that she works for President Museveni to bring back his glory in the region, which I think, again, it is so hard. I rest my case, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chisitu. Thank you. Again, on this very same note, because if you look at the list of the permanent secretaries, and actually I'm very much interested in Ramadhani Gobi. Ramadhani Gobi is a university donor at Makerere, and I know him personally. He's a brother to my good friend, Dr. Mogalu. So when you look at such a huge kind of person, he has a lot of knowledge in when it comes to economics, and do you see him a West in the cabinet, in the permanent secretary list? Or some of these people, apart from a person like Gobi, some of these people you look at and you look at them as so good that if they were working in a government which is really functional in terms of structure, you would look at them as potential people to run these I would call them ministries. So what I want you to get sense out of those good people that are serving in a very, I would say, nasty government. And what do you think? Is it still the suffocation of the elites, or it is they will make some sense out of them as they work with the government?
Mr. The gentleman from Tambala, and as I was reading on his Twitter, he thanked all people from Tambala, the students he has taught, and everyone in Uganda for the new challenge. Looking at the ministry where he's becoming the permanent secretary, the person who has been there, the secretary, the Ministry of Finance has had a lot of scandals, poor accountability in the ministry, to the extent that it is on record that some ministers in the very ministry have always been called, answer different questions. Then leave only that, go ahead, look at the permanent secretary of education, the former Kakoza, leaving education, going where? Going in the office of the vice president of his former boss, just Karupo, once the Minister of Education. Now, what does that tell to Ugandans, and what do we expect? Look at a lot of loopholes and a lot of challenges that have been in the Ministry of Education. Bringing the new curriculum, imparting onto schools with materials not yet brought, not yet printed out, children of senior being in schools without enough reading materials. The government claiming that through the Ministry of Education, giving out radios, supporting the TV programs to teach children. Remember, a permanent secretary is the one who is responsible for all the technical work within the ministry. The minister is only the political head of ministry. But in as far as the major policies that must be made in the ministry, it is always the permanent secretary that is responsible. But how are the things been going on? The question actually, when I received this article, your article that you sent to me, are we expecting good service? They did not. Friends are serving in a friend's government. That is why you're seeing Kakoza leaving education, permanent secretary of go the other side of the vice president. Then there is someone, is it Gua today, who is again still battling, who has been put aside, battling with the food scandals. Remember in the last lockdown, they brought up the issue of giving out portion and beans to all Ugandans, the vulnerable poor. They issued out outdated, let me call it rotten beans to people. Who was responsible? Gua today. And now has been put aside. Mr. Gobi is coming in as a senior economist. At one time, you'd find out that Uganda ran short of funds. By running short of funds, the first, and I think they have decided that Uganda is a way of managing finances is very poor. Therefore, they need someone experienced. We need someone who knows what to do. They need someone who can clearly dictate what the economy will be in some years to come. It is that time that we get staunch planners to always act in some ministries, not just putting there people who will just have to waste our time in the country. And I trust myself, I trust Mr. Gobi, I trust him so much. He will have to make sure that the accountability is made on something that people can see. Always we have been getting the accountability on things that we even don't know that they have always been giving us. And I would say that the new permanent secretary finance would work so well, would be so much in control of the finances of Uganda, and sincerely would not do what the ex-permanent secretary was doing. For information, for those who are watching us, the ex permanent secretary has been so much a braggart, could speak as if Ugandan humanity belongs to him, and could actually be as if Uganda belongs to him. But finally, after facing the scandals related to misuse of funds, I thank God that at least has been put aside. So from Mr. Gobi, as I know him, as he said on his Twitter handle, let us pray for that accountability for a reason, not accountability without any reason. And I trust him. I know he will do some good work for us.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chisitu. And we cannot go further discussing the issue of the cabinet, I mean, the appointees that the president made. And let's look at another issue, the issue of the opposition political parties. FDC and NUP are at war. And actually, when you look at what happened, it is the president, the FDC and NUP are at war because of the members that were appointed in the shadow cabinet. The leader of opposition went ahead and appointed members of FDC on its cabinet, the shadow cabinet structure, without the consent of the FDC. And in this regard, we are looking at various issues on this point. And before we go ahead to discuss, let's have a video that is trying to talk about what happened when they were appointing, and then from there we shall come back, and I'll start with Desire. When I come back, I'll start with Desire to analyze some of the issues. Let's go for the video.
And authority conferred in the Constitution and Parliamentary Rules of Procedure, the leader of opposition, Mathias Mpuuga, has today released the shadow cabinet. The list of 30 has 18 NUP members, 7 FDC members, 2 independents, 1 DP member, 1 from Uganda People's Congress, and 1 from PPP. Those selected is Wilfred Nwagaba as the Attorney General, Mwanga Chivumbi as the Finance Minister, Jonathan Odu as the Defense and Veteran Affairs, Dr. Bedi Bwanika as the Agriculture Minister, Dr. Timothy Batua for the Health Ministry, FDC's Francis Mwijuche for Trade and Industry, NUP's Ronald Balimwezo for Lands, Housing and Urban Development, Wachiso's Woman MP Betty Naluima for Local Government, Brenda Nabukenya as the Education Minister, and Geoffrey Solo Kayemba for Sports.
We decided we shall have fewer numbers than those availed to us. The reason is we want to show Mr. Museveni and his colleagues that it's possible to run a cabinet successfully with a small number. 30 people are enough to frame policies and so on. Also, yes, of course, NUP, we are majority on the other side, but we thought it important to incorporate other colleagues.
The main reason for this alternative cabinet is to play an oversight role to government business.
Once in a while, we hope that they'll be able to pick some of these because it's really ultimately for the good of the country. We want this country to get better. And where we see them go off track, we say, hey, there's a problem here. Our Minister of Finance, for example, to say, you know what, as opposed to investing more in security, yet we are not at war, the war in which we are currently is a health war. So as opposed to more tankers, more members, tear gas and so on, let's buy more hospital beds.
Some of the appointees have shared with us their priorities under the new offices.
Our image has been of a country reported regularly for violating rights and freedoms, locally and regionally. We are troubled with and trapped in a situation where majority neighboring states look at Uganda as an intruder, not a good neighbor.
And we are going to emphasize more such that our fellow youths can go back to their school, to the gardens, to the field, and we appreciate the nature we have, and we put more in agriculture because we believe in a crisis like this, nations need food, and we need to feed the nations. So
I intend to use it to see that Ugandans gain access to justice by working with all the stakeholders, and also ensuring equal access to justice to even those people that cannot afford lawyers.
I would like to see that the fishmo business that has brought chaos on the water bodies is ousted away from the hands of the army man, from the hands of foreigners into the hands of Ugandans, because they are eligible to the rights to benefit from the water resources, exception of any other directives.
John Cliff Wamala, NTV, Weekend Edition.
Seen so many of Ugandans, I mean, opposition leaders have been were appointed in the shadow cabinet, and really, I agree with you. I mean, with whoever appointed, that so many people of these are very, very strong people, but again, when you look at the fight, which I'm so much concerned between FDC, because FDC came out and say, no, we did not agree with you. You did not write to us when you are picking our people. So would you think, is this an egoistic struggle or struggle for delivery, according to your observation?
Yeah. Thank you so much, the moderator. NUP is a party that has been in existence for a number of months, not even years, if I could quote very well. If it has been in service for so long, in active service, I could say just a year. The era of Honorable Chagulani, the president of the party. FDC has been in existence for very many years. For over 20 years, it has always been dominating in the parliament. The party that owns the leader of opposition, it is always the party that has a number of seats in the house. That is beside the other ruling government. Looking at the 5 leaders of opposition that FDC has had, there is Honorable, if I could see my list very well, there is Honorable Zita, the name getting out of my head. There is Professor Maurice Ogengala Tigo, the first leader of opposition when FDC came into power. That is used to a number of parliamentary seats. Then we had Honorable Nathan Nandara Mafabi, leader of opposition again. We had Honorable Winnie Kisa, leader of opposition. We had Honorable Wafula Ogutu, leader of opposition. We had Bet Awal Ochang. And everyone, I think, saw this and knows this. Then we leave the FDC leaving the point of being the elects of the leader of opposition. I am, to my own observation, it is a very big blow. That is why they are complaining a lot about the issue. Looking at the other side of NUP, for the first time, we have got the leader of opposition from a party which is not FDC. And I could say that for very many years, FDC has been controlling the opposition, and no one has been complaining. There are parties that have been having members in the house. DP, UPC, the Zita of the other no JEMA, they have been having members in the house. But they have never come up to complain about the issue of not work closely with FDC that never existed in the politics of Uganda. For the first time, FDC came up. I would say that all of these parties were consulted by NUP. The NUP management wrote a letter to all the parties on the opposition to meet them in a secret meeting. And I remember, if you have been very much observant, you saw NUP visiting those of JEMA, and they welcomed. FDC rejected the meeting with their own reasons. Getting the head of opposition, it is in Article 88 of Constitution of Uganda and Article 14 of the Rules of Procedure of the government, of the Parliament, that a party of the Parliament, that a party that will have a number of seats in Parliament from the side of the opposition shall always have the mandate to lead, to vote for the head of the leader of opposition. These things are not beginning at the point of the shadow government. No, FDC from the side of the speaker. Remember, FDC accuses NUP for not supporting Semujunganda on the post of being the speaker, and they sidelined with Rebecca Kadaga. They accused them for that. If you have been very much observant, and I'm sure you've seen this, still leaving that aside, they are coming up, that is NUP, not giving the seat for the opposition on their side. It seems at one point we have parties at the opposition which are so comfortable on being on the opposition side. When you look at the goals of NUP, may not be in line with the goals of FDC, because in NUP it tells us that it wants to take up the post of the control of the whole country. The president from NUP, then the ministers and so on, all the major ministries being controlled by NUP. But FDC, I think, feels very much comfortable to be at the opposition side. That is why I could say that FDC is a necessary bed of NRM, because most of the FDC diehards are always uprooted from the other necessary bed, and they are made to fit in the ruling government. What does that mean to people who are viewing us right now? What does that mean to the local Ugandan? Remember, of recent, there is the deputy president, central region, this Uganda region, honorable, that lady, the name has got out of my head. Sebugwao has just joined NRM, but they have not come up to make a lot of noise. Why are they making a lot of noise right now for the issue of the government? They keep quiet when their members have gone the other side. They don't make a lot of complaints. But if they are not given the other side of being the leaders of opposition, then they make a lot of noise. What is the instance behind that? People on the opposition side will not achieve anything up to when they unite and they accept to work together. The moment they still stay in their different childish wrangles, we shall not achieve anything in the country. And still, to inform the viewers, what is the shadow government? What is the role of the shadow government? What do they earn if you happen to be a member of the shadow government? Let me give an example. All of us, we are prisoners.
Just wrap up in 1 minute.
In 1 minute, we are prisoners at Luzira. But we need, amongst the prisoners, we need to get our leaders, whereby they will act as our spokespeople. Our leaders will always convey our complaints to those ones who are concerned. That is the opposition shadow government. They are not getting a lot of money as they think, but positions which will help to air out the weaknesses in the respective departments. If it is finance, who is the leader of opposition? Minister of Finance. In relation to the Minister of Finance in the ruling government, is this person following up very well? Sitting on committees, chairing the committees, that is so hectic again, but not a lot of rewards that are being given. No. So we should say that there is someone who is very busy fueling up these wrangles in the opposition. But if we don't become very much observant, people at the opposition will will go down and down and down and collapse like the political parties that are no longer at the same. And NRM will continue to be the giant party in Uganda. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Kisiti, for the submission. And actually, let me bring in Desire. Desire, on the very same note, if you look at what is really happening in the opposition political parties, there seem to be more an egoistic struggle than service delivery. They tend to be fighting on who should be stronger on the other side of the aisle. So what is your take about that?
One thing that as Ugandans we should always remember, opposition in Uganda has always existed for one fundamental thing, and that was to remove and oust the Museveni government. But so far, what opposition party has been able to deliver on just that promise? I will wait if there is an answer to that question. We forget why even the opposition exists, because right now the politics that we're in Uganda every Ugandan citizen should be opposition to the government, not just a set of politicians, because they have proven to be so ineffective to even be in opposition. But as I leave that even alone, FDC came into existence for a revolutionary cause, didn't it? Noob came into existence for a revolutionary cause, didn't it? Why have they become so constitutional? And why are they serving this government? Why are we hearing them argue about a shadow cabinet to overlook the president? Yet we even in the last segment just talked about a deep state. I don't understand why only in Uganda these conversations are a normalcy and are seen as avenues of that might lead to some change, or we keep on having these conversations that legitimize how things are happening in Uganda. So what would be the purpose of the shadow government? Why does the shadow government exist? In the same sentence and in the same breath, we talk about a deep state and the existence of a deep state and people who are favored within this state. So is this shadow cabinet going to be able to police the deep state and be able to inform Ugandans on matters in the deep state? How does the shadow cabinet help Mwananchi? How does the shadow cabinet serve Mwananchi? And how then what is the use of having parliament? Everything is now proving to be so ineffective and inefficient. You can't fix this ineffective government with a shadow cabinet because the government is ineffective. If that makes sense. That is what's not, it has reached a point in Uganda whereby we're talking about two opposition political parties arguing, beating themselves up. NRM looks very good in this scenario. We haven't even talked about what NRM is doing. We are not even talking about what the deep state is doing. How many NRM members are in the deep state?
No.
We haven't talked about all those issues that actually affect Ugandans. And we're talking about a political party that has nothing to its resume but the past few months, of which in politics, months don't matter. But it's also about execution, because even FDC that has existed for over 20 years almost equates to nothing on its resume, but just promises. Ugandans were left at a point of promises and lamentation, and no one puts action forward in terms of political parties.
Yes, thank you very much, Desire. Again, on the same note, Desire, when you look at, again, there was an eruption of the fight within FDC itself, whereby members of parliament were very, very, beat about the way they were being deployed to this committee. And I saw Honorable Cecilia Ogwal almost fighting Honorable Sam Jonganda, who is the whip of FDC. After sending her from the finance committee to another committee. And also I saw another member of parliament was complaining that doesn't want to go to the HIV committee. Do you see this as a fight for survival that is eating, or is it really, are they genuine on what they are saying?
The fights that are happening of people not wanting to transfer to committees, my question to them would be, why are you here? Because parliament is all about service delivery. But if you don't want to go to a committee, it has even stopped being a question of survival. The question now that I hold is that if you go to a certain committee, does that give you access to more connections to get yourself into the next spot that will earn you more? The only contributing factor here seems to be greed and comfortability. Like politicians in Uganda are so comfortable with the status quo, because the status quo has already been tipped to be so unfair for the masses. The masses put in all the work and the politicians get all the rewards, and they do not have to deliver to even get those rewards. That's why you can have ungrateful, inconsiderate people publicly arguing about going to put different committees to serve the people, because that will not serve their personal interests.
Thank you very much, Desire. I think that is very, very, very pertinent as you look at the situation that we have, whereby people in the parliament and other places of responsibilities are not taking it for the people, instead of having all these other problems that they have on their own. As let's have a short break. As we come back, we try to look at the last segment of our discussion, and then from there we shall go to our viewers' comments and messages and calls. And don't forget that we are live on all our Facebook pages. That is Chimbugwe Live, as well as UNN TV official on both the YouTube and Facebook, as well as Twitter and all other platforms. Please keep going and sharing this video as we come back. Don't get away.
Dr. Andrew Takome Kaira was born on 30th January 1945 in a small town known as Nkokonjeru in the Buganda region. He is regarded as one of Uganda's forgotten heroes, a true nationalist whose love for his country sent him to an early grave. He was a lawyer and professor and had many accomplishments since 1971, with many of his accolades attained from his education and political experiences, both nationally and internationally. Significant is his doctoral dissertation titled Condoism in Uganda, which has awarded him an internationally recognized terminology now used in criminology. He joined several political organizations, including Uganda Freedom Movement, UFM, which he was the leader, the Uganda National Liberation Front, UNLF, later joining the National Resistance Army, NRA, which had once been his organization's rival. Dr. Kaira is regarded as one of Uganda's forgotten heroes, a true nationalist whose love for his country led to his premature death. He was just 46 years old when he was assassinated on 6th March 1987 during a dinner with his close friends and 3 female acquaintances. His killers have never been brought to justice.
Welcome back to the last segment of our the Tower at UNN once again, and as we promised, we're coming back for the last segment. And in this segment, we are looking at South Africa, where the former president of South Africa, Jacob Zuma, was sentenced to jail for 15 months for having committed crimes of not appearing in the courts of law when he was needed. And this has erupted a lot of problems in South Africa. South Africa is now becoming a ghost. I mean, cities like Durban and Pretoria becoming ghost cities because of the looting and violence that has really erupted because of the arrest of of Jacob Zuma. I want to bring in Desire in this regard. First of all, Desire, when you look at what is really happening in South Africa, it gives a very good background of the structural development and the social structure of the people of South Africa. Because according to history, the people of South Africa are naturally violent, and very few things that happen there would result into something big that lead to, kind of destruction. I remember the issue of violence that came up when it came to the COVID-19 shutdown or lockdown. People became very violent. I remember of another issue, I think it was in 2010, where we had an issue of the coal mine riots, where many people were killed. And also you remember the xenophobia problem, where people out of South Africa that were coming from out of South Africa were being forced out of South Africa, many of whose business were really destroyed and many of them looted. When you look at such a historical structure of the people of South Africa, would you relate this as to love for Zuma, or it is their natural kind of behavior that has again come to surface?
I would like to say that I would not say that South Africans are naturally violent. I think we ought to remember the historical fabric that's bringing South Africa together, and why South Africa is in the state that it is, and what actually South Africa is. Because the first settler colonizer to ever come on the African continent docked in Johannesburg, present-day Johannesburg. But South Africa is a country that was not so different, but was structurally very in terms of theory, it was the same as almost every other British colony. But in terms of execution, was the most brutal. We had South Africans, indigenous South Africans, be put into shunts and slums and impoverished for generations to come. And the land was grabbed and taken, and white people ruled over, became citizens, and declared the political means. We've had South Africans fight for South Africa is one of Africa's last countries to even get independence, getting independence in 1994. Most of us were born in the 90s, and South Africa just got independence. So that means that the wound of South Africa is still open. So the question is, what did South Africa get if it did not get the revolutionary need? Because as we remember, we've talked about, you had also brought about all the different instances where there has been violence and rooting. But one thing that is very clear in South Africa is that the outbreak of violence and rooting is not outside of the realm of South Africa's government, police, and army executing violence onto the people of South Africa. So many things happened whereby indigenous South Africans were killed just for protesting for change in South Africa, to lift apartheid and to lift all the other racially segregating things. So in general, we come to a situation where today South Africa is a settler colony, meaning that Europeans are still on South African land, and which is African indigenous land that belongs to the different nations that existed in South Africa, like the Zulus, the Xhosa, and is still taking control of that. But you have indigenous South Africans now having access to the land, which belongs to them, now having access to resources, and also being put in shunts and slums. So then we go to the problem with xenophobia. Xenophobia comes on about depending on all the other factors that matter. We should not negate the fact that many Black South Africans are still impoverished, are still living in dire poverty, are still having no access to resources. So the change that Mandela brought still remains to be defined as constitutional change. You even have someone who was serving in the government at the time that said, we do not want revolutionary, and this was a white member in the government, because South Africa's government always was ruled by the colonizer. And he said, we do not want revolutionary change, we want constitutional change. And that's what came to South Africa. It was constitutional change. So when people have an outburst, because I would not say that the looting and everything, when looting happens, we so often call it violence, but even those businesses are violent to the people. because they are the ones that leave the people impoverished because of lack of access for a normal day-to-day person. For example, if a mall in Uganda was looted, but what about the people who have been serving in the markets? It's those malls that make the scheme very unfair. But to wrap this up and not to go around in circles is that South Africa got constitutional change and never got revolutionary change, which it needed. And then what's happening with Zuma is because the present president of South Africa, Ramaphosa, is a puppet president and is manipulating and using, because we all know that Zuma comes from Zulu Nation, and is using and gimmicking and using tribalistic intents to say that this is a part of that. But it's because the people there, ever since the lockdown, people, especially living in rural South Africa, are almost dying out of hunger, have not had access to resources, are still impoverished. So when you see people rise up, people loot, people burn down things, it's not because they want violence. It's not because they love Zuma so much. It's because people cannot bear to even live in that country for one more day without change. And that's what we see happening in South Africa. People cannot bear to live in the daily conditionings that they have been given, especially because they're indigenous to that land and they have nowhere else to go, and they can go nowhere else. And they also love that land and want better, and are still begging for the revolutionary change they were promised, because it seems like it's more of a deterioration other than what they were promised.
Thank you very much, Desire. Mr. Kisitu, Desire has pointed out a very pertinent issue when it comes to economic and social outburst. You look at what is happening in South Africa as a result of very many factors. That is both political and governance problem, where we look at South Africa. South Africa has a bigger problem whereby they don't own land, they don't grow their own crops, apart from very few states, very few provinces where they grow their personal crops. All the food that they earn, all the food that they have to buy from the supermarket. And on top of that, here is a situation of COVID, and many of them ran away. Unable to, obtain a bread for a day. And when an opportunity came for rioting, I think they got opportunity for that. Would you relate that happened in South Africa as a replica of political decadence in the whole of Africa?
Thank you so much, the moderator. But before actually I comment about the question you've so far asked me, I would go back to remember the African nationalism that I studied. I'll go back and I look at the history of South Africa, which I studied. South Africa, looking at its history, a lot of rebellions in South Africa, a lot of racial segregation in South Africa, a lot of torturing of the indigenous South African people. And those very things still do exist. Getting the independence in 1994, personally, was, I think, just 3 or 2 years by that time. 3 or 2 years by that time. Looking at that, South Africa being one of the young states in Africa. Look at Sudan. Is it Southern Sudan? Southern Sudan. One of the younger states. Then we have South Africa. Again, very young, 1994. Just 3 years from now. Still, South Africa coming up to get their first president, African president, as being Nelson Mandela. Nelson Mandela, in the history of South Africa and Africa, everyone is praising him for having done a lot of things in South Africa. Leading for only one Chisanja in courts, one term, and then after he had to leave power. But leaving South Africa in a lot of problems. That is why I'll highly credit President Idi Amin Dada in Uganda, who during his period said things of Ugandans, black Ugandans, must belong to black Ugandans. Therefore, you the whites, please, can you get your way out of the country? And indeed, everyone saw that, and they had to leave Uganda. That is one thing that paved the way for the Ugandans to again go back to business and get what to do and get what to eat and That is where some of them even became so much rich. Leave on this government that is controlling us right now, which is almost killing everything. Looking at again South Africa, these people going on strike. It is not, the major reason is not Zuma, and I would strongly say it is not Zuma that is so much loved, very much popular, and so on. Because by looking at his tenure when he was still in the president, again South Africa had the very problems. Statistically, South African youth over 32.6, all of them are unemployed. They are jobless. Looking at the people in South Africa, their natural nature, they are lazy people. They are people who just want things for free. They don't want to come up and work. Then these people are the ones who are still looking for what to do. Looking at this corona period, corona lockdowns becoming lockdowns in South Africa. Every now and then the government is locking it down. Every now and then the government is locking it down. What do you expect people to eat? Yet, by the occurrence of COVID-19, they were found when they are in a sorry state. You would expect them to go on the roads to make sure they can express their dissatisfaction. South Africa, they called Zuma to present himself to the Judicial Commission for Inquiries, the president. Then he was like, I cannot turn up. And he gave them his reasons. The ex-president South Africa is over 79 years old. Those years are for people who are so much vulnerable. They are the elderly who are highly affected by the current pandemic, COVID-19. And again, he gave that as an excuse that I cannot come to that side because I will be putting my life at risk, given the catastrophe that the world is experiencing today. They were like, no, by force we have to attend. A day to his reporting to the Judicial Service Commission, all the Zulu people came with machete, pangas, horse, whichever thing they can use to fight. And they guarded the home of president, the ex-president of South Africa. This was not enough for the government and the president Ramaphosa, the top accounting officer, to realize that these people are so much bitter about what is going to happen. They continued again to pressurize the ex-president of South Africa to present himself. Then this gentleman who was so wise, what happened to those ones who are not following this story? The next morning, no one knew that President Zuma will present himself to the Judicial Commission for Inquiries. And it was only the morning he informed his only daughter and the son that he would be appearing before the Judicial Commission for Inquiries. And when he reached, they just mishandled the issue and was put behind bars. It was the daughter of the president who put the message on Twitter, and every South African knew about this. All of them came on a road. What is the implication of this? The president looked far. By looking far, all the scandals taking place in South Africa would be implicated on him. That, you see, the gentleman refused to present himself to the Judicial Service Commission. That is why we have a lot of corruption scandals in the country. That is why the levels of unemployment are still increasing. That is why you see people are suffering, and it is a lot of things could be implicated on him. And the blame would be shifted from the current President Ramaphosa, though he also has some weaknesses. Then they did not critically look at that. They just decided the way they decided, causing a lot of havoc in the country. And today, the current government and the President Ramaphosa, there is no in any way of how they can escape this blame. To inform all our viewers now that ANC, a party that has been in control since 1994, it has been controlling South Africa. Ramaphosa claims that ANC has got a lot of problems, and therefore his main aim is to make sure that he can clean up the house, he can clean up the party, and everything becomes fine. And that contributed to the putting aside to the forcing of the Secretary General, the ex-Secretary General of ANC to be aside, such that they could investigate about the corruption issues. I could say that if our governments in Africa, they do not become so much observant about the decisions they make, we are soon experiencing the very things in other African countries. People are so poor. People are unemployed. People are very much traumatized with the way of their governance, the way they govern the country. Look at South Africa. A few families are in the politics of the country. Look at other countries. A small family or a few people or a group of people is in the control of the country. And even go back to South Africa. In South Africa, it is the Zulu, the biggest group of people in South Africa, if I could quote it very well, biggest group of people in South Africa, where Zuma comes from, being traumatized by the current president Ramaphosa, given the wrangles they have in their ANC. And looking at this side, there is a very big group of people that is very much traumatized. And that very group of people, as compared to the other half of the Zulu, it has got youth. Over 40% of the youth in those groups have no jobs. Yet they are educated, they have got skills, they have got everything that is required to occupy the offices. In South Africa, people who are not supposed to be in offices, they occupy offices. Therefore, that has always been hurting the South Africans. The imprisonment of Zuma was just a sparking factor. It is a sparking point that made all the people to wake up that, please, we want A, B, C, D. We are suffering in the houses. You're continuing to enforce your lockdown. We don't have jobs. People are dying because of hunger instead of COVID. And the government is not providing anything. Not forgetting the moderator, as I conclude. The issue, if I could say, the issue is that in South Africa, they acquired independence. By their independence is just a puppet independence. Whites still control the biggest part of the economy. That hurts the indigenous South African people. Towns, those that you would call the very good towns in South Africa, they are mainly occupied by the whites in South Africa. The indigenous South African people are in villages suffering. Yet they have got children. Those who can manage to take them to school, they have taken them. But the services they are getting, they don't clearly equate to what they're supposed to get. So today, if the South Africans come up to raise up against the government, they are 100% right. And I would say they are coming up not because of Zuma as a person. Zuma is just a sparking factor, and they have always been looking for this. I would feel so sorry for over the 2,000 people that have lost their lives. I would feel so sorry in South Africa. As I was trying to read the news, I got those statistics over by now. I would feel so sorry for the investors that have lost a lot of their money. Today, as I speak, South African currency last lost value in February this year. It has lost value the second time now. Why? Economic activities are not going on. A lot of things have been stolen. People are looking forward to eat, no supplies that are in South Africa. And a lot of things are transpiring in South Africa. So I would say that let the leader in Africa try as much as they can to always think twice when they are making decisions, most especially the decisions over their people that they are leading, those who have been in control. The moderator, you know this very well. You've read up the book of Animal Farm. All animals are equal, but some animals are more equal. This should be seen by all the leaders. It should be seen. You cannot come in Uganda and you say that you're arrogant, imprisoning some top political leaders in Uganda here. You cannot do that. You cannot come here in Uganda and you say that you're touching the Kabaka of Uganda. All of us, we are equal, yes. Some individuals are more what? are more equal. In South Africa, you would not go there and you start to play with the Zulu people. You would not. It requires always giving it a second thought. To think twice
Thank you, Mr.
before
Chief.
making a
Thank you
decision.
very
So
much.
they never thought twice. That is why South Africa is facing all of those challenges. And I don't know what they're going to do to make sure they bring back the rule of law, which they made not exist in South Africa. And the rule of law works only on the black Africans. The other people are favored. They don't take the rules. When you get time, Mr. Moderator, research about Mr. Gravin in South Africa, a white man in South Africa, Mr. Gravin, who is believed to be at top of everything in South Africa. And South Africans are complaining about that. All of us, the South Africans, likewise, what you're seeing in South Africa, please, when you happen to see it in Uganda, never be surprised. Because what is taking place, what took place, what made them to rise up, the very things are in the country Uganda.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you. Before I bring in another person, I bring in Desire for wrapping up. There's a video that I wanted us to play regarding the South African issue, and then after that we shall come back and wrap up our program as we wait for also other people who are in the chat room, as well as people listening and viewers, to give us a call in as brief as possible, send a voice so that we can extend the discussion together.
Over the past few days and nights, there have been acts of public violence of a kind rarely seen in the history of our democracy. Property has been vandalized and destroyed. Shops have been looted. Law-abiding citizens have been threatened and intimidated. Workers are scared that they may not be able to return to work. People have died. At this hour, there are several families in our country that are in deep mourning.
The current situation on the ground is under strong surveillance, and we will ensure that it does not deteriorate any further. We cannot allow anyone to make a mockery of our democratic state, and we have instructed the law enforcement agencies to double their efforts to stop the violence and to increase deployment on the ground.
As I said, shops have been looted and infrastructure has been destroyed. This means that our sick cannot get medication from pharmacies. Food does not reach supermarket shelves, and health workers cannot go to work. We will soon be facing a huge risk of food insecurity and medication insecurity in a few weeks. Our vaccination program has been severely disrupted just as it is gaining momentum. Thanks to the work of our law enforcement agencies, 166 suspects have been arrested in KwaZulu-Natal, and 323 suspects have been arrested in Gauteng in relation to these incidents. Some have characterized these actions as a form of political protest. This violence may indeed have its roots in the pronouncements and activities of individuals with a political purpose, and in expressions of frustration and anger. At the beginning of this unrest, there may have
Thank you very much. Our desire, as we try to find out, try to wrap up our program. Do you think the situation that we have in South Africa, initially, as we look at the arrest and prosecution of President Zuma, is that the existence of the rule of law? Yes, Desire. I think I've lost Desire. Can we have, if we can, let's have those who sent their videos and the rest so that we can be able to hear and listen to them. Our producer, if we have some, then let's continue and see what happens.
Yeah, you say it's not yours, it's above you. Yes, now, when you tell us that we are contracted by Ministry of Health, yes, still you could give us the answer of...
Just by the mere fact that the government came through...
No, those stories we don't want.
Okay, we've got...
Test and Fly does QC, Safari Lab does QC,
Who does it on behalf of Ministry of Health? Who does QC on behalf of Ministry of Health?
On behalf of Ministry of Health.
Testing at the border is in the hands of these private investors. And the charge is only 140,000 per an individual. When you have come to Entebbe, there's another border, Entebbe International Airport. It is the same, but the costs are different. In Entebbe, they are charging 350. That is too much. So what we are discovering here is that even the Ministry of Health tests people going out and they give them fake results, which are quoted by these people. Secondly, Civil Aviation Authority has given a free will and entrance to some countries without paying and checking them again here. However, Ugandans coming from the same country, coming back here, are tested and they pay a lot of money.
There is no capacity for this government to do quality assurance on the private laboratories we have seen. They have explained that they do their own quality assurance.
Yes, there's Desire. I think, Desire, can you now hear me, please?
Yeah, I
I
can
would
hear
like
you.
you to add on your submission regarding.
So, as we wrap up with the situation with South Africa is, first of all, the functioning of the constitution, whereby the arrest of Zuma, of former President Zuma, we all know politically, it was a political move that was moved on the people. And there is not a lot of legitimacy for even his arrest. And there is not even a lot of legitimacy for his sentencing. But also, as we wrap up South Africa, one thing that I wanted at least us as viewers to clear up, and this is a very important thing about the African Revolution and how that would live. It matters how we see ourselves and how we understand ourselves and how we understand ourselves in regards to the struggle to liberate ourselves. As there has been voicing of South Africans being lazy people, but I will put this to the audience to think about who actually was the human labor to building South Africa. You see the roads, you see the buildings, who built those malls physically? We all know these were African indigenous peoples living in South Africa that are these days referred to as lazy. So we also need to understand how these systems have made us look and rise above that image if we really want to liberate ourselves as a people, which is within our reach, especially in this era, and which can mean a different political scenery for the African continent. So that would be one thing that I just want to put forward in terms of the whole South African situation is people are really tired, especially on the African continent. We are dealing with a landslide of useless politicians from when we got independence. And most of the politicians who have now come into place, like South Africa, like Uganda, do not work for the people, but work for their own interests and work for the interests of only a few people. And that's people who can build big malls in 3 days, or not 3 days, that's an exaggeration, in 3 months. And people who just want to enrich themselves off of African minerals, resources, and human labor. So we need to make sure that that landslide of politicians from that era is ousted for us to actually have people in control, in power, and having access to resources. So what's happening in South Africa, we're going to see it in so many places in African countries. We haven't even talked about it. In Senegal, we had an uprising of recent. I expect so many more African countries to say no to the present political, economic, and social factor that's playing into African politics, which is a landslide of useless politicians in their 70s, 60s, still making us client states to our former colonies.
Thank you very much, Desire. Thank you very much. Our viewers, we are about trying to wrap up our show. We want you to participate in this show by calling the number that you see on the screen or sending your voice so that you can really directly and lively participate in this discussion. As we wait for our viewers and callers to send messages and also calling live, Desire, when you look at the situation that we have in South Africa vis-a-vis in Uganda, if you relate it to Ugandan situation, do you think Ugandans have not reached that outburst level or the level of the clicking level for somebody to raise up the way the South Africans did?
I think that Ugandans have, and Ugandans, we've seen these situations in Uganda happen, but because we're not so used to them, we all remember November. During the November, I hate to call them
Uganda riot,
the November riots. We all have talked about Kayunga riots. We have talked about, there's so many instances where Ugandans have outbusted and have that outburst, and it has happened, but it goes off our mind. So the difference between South Africa and Uganda, and why we're seeing South Africa is like a wow factor, is because in Uganda, Museveni has mastered military dictatorship. The militancy is high. And in South Africa, you have Ramaphosa trying to instigate a military dictatorship. So it's about how long the leaders have been in power and how long the leaders have mooched off, especially police and military, to not serve the people, but to be a means of the state to extend state violence. In Uganda, police, they came on TV and said, police has a right to shoot. We don't see the same thing happening in South Africa, but in South Africa, they're trying to normalize the fact that police is on the streets shooting.
Oh yeah, thank you very much. As we wait for the message for any caller on the line, we want Mr. Chisitu. If you look at in 2 minutes, if you look at what is happening in South Africa and relate it to Uganda, you find out that Uganda, apart from 1986, I think 85, where there was a lot of looting, we haven't had any other looting. The president of Uganda has managed to control the people from such a kind of violence, which involves a lot of looting. Even when we had an issue in the Buganda riot of 2009, and also the November riot, we didn't have a lot of people that were coming on the streets going to the shops to, steal and, of course, taking people's property. What is your take on this? Is the government of Uganda in very great position of, maintaining, or is it the character of the people?
Yeah, thank you so much, the moderator. I would say that Uganda, I don't know whether some people have taken a lot of years without being in Uganda, without looking at the structure of Uganda currently. In Uganda, people who are supposed to be here are not in Kampala. People are in villages. People are so poor to the level that they cannot even have anything in the pocket to support a riot of even 2 days or 3 days. Even the politicians who would plan to do this work of mobilizing the masses to come up and they show their dissatisfaction, I think they are working with the current president as I speak. Because I remember the walk to work that used to exist in Kampala, and it would easily be suppressed. Yet people could show that they are not fine with how things are going on in. So Uganda in government tried as much as it can to make sure that it silences all of those groups of people that could mobilize the others to come up and strike. And given the type of, as actually the other second point, given the Ugandans that
Okay,
given the
Mr.
type of
Kisitu, hold on.
Ugandans
Just
that we
hold
have.
on. We have a caller on the line. We have a caller on the line. We have a caller online. Okay, we have lost the caller. Mr. Kisitu, go ahead.
Looking at Uganda with its nature, northern part of Uganda having a war for very many years, and right now they fear even to do anything. They fear that. Then looking at the other side, the other is it the Busoga region? Busoga region, what do you expect from that side? Again, you don't expect all that much. Looking at Buganda region, they tried at one time. Was it in 2008, 2008? That I think 8 or 7. They tried, but it was just a voice of one person who made everything come to a standstill.
We have a call online. Yes, we have a call online. Yes, caller.
Hello.
Yes, please. Go ahead and articulate your issues.
All right. Hello, Mr. Kacherega. Thanks
Yes,
for the
please.
show.
Thank you as well for this.
And Mr. Chisitu, I really love your smile. Now, I'm going to talk about a few things. I'm not going to talk about South Africa. I'm going to talk about the problems that we have.
Go ahead.
Talk about the few things, and I'm going to start with the education. Now, I have my few questions with the education. Basically, the PLE of last year. Now, what type of PLE did they do? Because as far as I'm concerned, I don't think those kids studied that much. Okay, let's say that they've been studying for the previous years, but then they needed that year to prepare very well for their exams. So what type of examinations did they do? And then another thing, and how, yes, of course, the rural areas had to perform badly, of course, because they lied to us that the funds that they got, they are going to buy radios and they are going to give to every to every student, to every person in Uganda, of which they didn't avail to them. So now, how did the kids in the villages study? Those are my questions. How did they study? How did they prepare for their examinations? Because as far those people, okay, let's say here in the towns they were able to study, of course, like Mr. Chisitu said, 1% on television, because it's not easy for a kid to sit on a television and learn. So now imagine those people in the very deep in the rural areas where there were no electricity. How did they study? Really? How?
Thank you very much.
We'll talk about also the appointment of the IGG. It is very, very well clear that Museveni now does whatever he feels like. Whichever puppet is going to serve him, whoever sees as a puppet to him is the one he appoints, because that woman, that lady, has been in opposition for a very long period of time. And now he's appointed as the IGG. So it means that the opposition is meaningless. Like I said, it has, like Desire said, it is meaningless. It is just because even if she's appointed, it's a meaningless system. It's a rotten system. So I don't expect much from her. I don't think she's going to do anything. She's just a puppet. So it goes back to the point that we do not have opposition in Uganda. We don't have. It is just rotten. It is meaningless. It's just, let's put it in brief, that it's just people who are working with Museveni, that the whole opposition is working with Museveni. We should not call it opposition, because in Uganda we do not have opposition. And another thing that they say, that they are struggling. Struggling for what? Are they really struggling for power? No, maybe they are struggling for the promotion of Lubongoya, nothing else. So thank you very much for that show, guys.
Thank you very
We
much.
really appreciate your good work. I'm not going to talk about South Africa. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, our caller. Thank you very much for being, of course, following up what we are saying. If we have another caller, do you have another caller? Yes. As we try to wrap up, please, viewers and all our members of UNN, we all the time been trying to talk about the establishment of UFCC, Uganda Federal Desire. Can you remind me about
Uganda Federal Consultation Committee.
Uganda Federal UFCC is in taking shape, and we expect everybody to participate as we try to establish those very, very cores of our Uganda, our country. So we need to be very pertinent with this, and love and passion, so that we can establish a very good firm base for our country. So whoever is interested, or whoever feels like he should take part in this new establishment, would please try to get in touch with us at get UNN, at UFCC at getunn.com. And I request, our producer has already put it up, UFCC at getunn.com. So write to us and show us the area that you think you'll be best fitting to participate in. And then when time comes, we shall always call on you for the grand meeting that is going to take place virtually. So I'll try to wrap up this show, because we are time bad right now. I would like to request Mr. Kisitu to first give your final wrap up as we try and we finish up, and you say goodbye to our viewers.
Yeah, thank you so much, the moderator. But to begin with, the question of I didn't quote the name of the lady who was just called. I thank her so much. The exams that people sat for, PLE, were standard papers, standard exams, and I personally witnessed that the 4 papers, SST Science, Mathematics, and English. Those in town, their parents used to coach them. They paid for them coaching. I think when I talk about coaching, you would understand that, and it is a normal term that people have been using always, and they have always been trying to teach them at home. They are those in town. In villages, one thing that accounts for their failure is that they did not complete the syllabi fully, and the papers were standard, and therefore that accounts to the poor performance this time around, most especially those in the villages. Then looking at the way how Uganda is handled in relation to South Africa, I think we are only waiting for the sparking factor, the major sparking factor. That is what Ugandans are waiting for. But I will not say that they have done enough. And Mr. Nudin, to tell you this, doctor, the government must try, Ugandan government must try as much as it can to make sure that it handles the furious hearts of the youth in Uganda, such that they don't cause the same like it is in South Africa. I thank you so much. I thank all our viewers that have been online. I greet all of those ones in Dubai that are online. My brothers and sisters, I've seen your messages, I've seen your videos. Thank you so much for viewing. And I'm sure next time we shall have a very special program. I rest my case. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Kisitu. It's been a pleasure as well all along whenever you come over with us and we discuss issues pertaining our Uganda. Before I bring in a Desire to wrap up, we have a voice of one of our viewers. We want the producer is gonna send it to us, and then we bring in Desire to close up.
Hey, good evening. Just want to thank you for a wonderful show. This is UNN, where independent minds one. We are so proud of you guys. Just do your thing. We love you. We love you so much.
Thank you very much, our viewers, for that courage that you have given us, and we hope to, give you more and more in the best way. Desire, can you wrap up and we get out of this place?
Sorry. Oh yeah, I'm not muted. I'm going to just differ just a little bit from Mr. Tisitu. As I conclude, I think the situation in Uganda, we have had those sparks. We have had not one, but so many sparks. And I think that where we are right now, we are in a revolutionary process whereby we have come to a brain freeze, but have not yet come to the grasp of it. So many things have happened in Uganda, and the sparks have been there, but it's only because on the ground, it's so hard for anything to ever happen on the ground. So this is a call out to Ugandans in the diaspora. The future of our country, or its existence, or our ability to even go back and participate and be a part of it, or to even ever be proud of that country as it stands, lies in the hands of Ugandans living in the diaspora. Because a mockery is on the ground in Uganda, institutionally, in the politics, in the economics, in the social. So the responsibility as it stands is up to us people in the diaspora to figure out working ways, to figure out ways to actually get this revolution and reel it back into the voices of the people so that we can coordinate and work with people on the ground. And that's the only way, because the spark has already been there. No one can tell me that the campaign trail and the election of 2021 was not spark enough for Ugandans living anywhere worldwide to wake up to the situation that our country is in dire need of saving from the hands and the claws of just a small number of family members that have enriched themselves and corrupted and destroyed our country. So as I wrap up, there's a lot of work to be done, but it's going to depend on our dedication. As I wrap up, we're not waiting for a spark. We've seen the sparks and responded to them, and are now in a process of a revolutionary process. And it's up to us to actually rise to the occasion and be a part of that process. And also, as I wrap up, as a Ugandan, I am tired of the mockery. We're not daft people. We see what's happening, and I'm tired of the nuisance in parliament that happens in parliament, in government. And to Ugandans, may we look at character over anything else as we choose our leaders, because anything other than character has led us with the leaders that we have today. Let character be of importance moving forward. Thank you very much for the program and for having us here today, and really appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Desire. Thank you very much for the good wrap up that you've made. Dear our esteemed viewers and people that like their country, Uganda. Uganda, as I always mention, belongs to us. Uganda has been in existence, and in 1962, Ugandans came and went to London and established a system where, and a structure, political structure, which they felt would be the best for ruling Uganda. Unfortunately, in 1966, the originality and the core of Uganda was all erased by the overthrow of the Ugandan constitution by Milton Obote. He replaced it with a pigeonhole constitution that erased the originality and the kingship and the federal system of governance that was established to cater for every Ugandan proportionally. In this regard, Uganda has gone to dogs. Ugandans are no longer participating in the affairs of running the affairs of their country. It has gone into the hands of very few and those that say and bow to the current regime. It is a call upon all Ugandans in the diaspora and in Uganda, everywhere in the world, to come up from their comfort zone and try to establish a system that will help to revamp the problems that we have in Uganda. That's why there was a new establishment, the Uganda Federal Consultative Council has been put in place so that it can act as an umbrella for all Ugandans to come up and restructure the Uganda and Ugandan political structure. This will help to have a structure that is impenetrable and will be allowed or will help to run Uganda to its farthest, and everybody would enjoy it. So those of you who feel they're ready to come up and really fish out Uganda in the deep waters it is in, please contact us at ufcc@getunn.com. Write to us, we'll be responding to you, and we will tell you the program as to when we shall all merge to discuss the political direction of Uganda. I cannot go beyond this. Thank you very much, our viewers, for this wonderful time that you always give us and all the money that you spend to buy data so that you can participate in this show. I cannot also forget to thank our producer who is doing everything to make sure that everything is done properly. I also thank my producer, personal producer, who does the best as well to make me appear the way I am, and also the wardrobe manager who always brings me to your face when I'm very smart. Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Let's meet another time, the same time, as well as the next as we meet next time on the same time, the same day. But don't forget, our discussion continues on the platforms, and don't also forget that we have a next show coming in with Prince Paul coming out also to give you very good situations that need to be observed as usual. Thank you very much. God bless you and have a blessed night and a blessed week. Thank you. Bye.